Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Star Wars Doctrine. I'm here, Logan Schultz, and with me as always is my co-host Cody Dastrup.
How's it going, guys?
Today we're going to talk about some of the things we've been talking about on our page, which has been just full of exciting news, right?
Been a good week.
Yeah, it's been a great week, honestly. We've been just pumped seeing all the different Star Wars news. I mean, yeah, right?
No shortage of things to talk about. Go ahead and pull it up. And first kind of on the list this week was that we wanted to talk about was the Mandalorian. They released the dates, obviously, and stuff. So we were talking about that. And we thought that a lot of the dates were interesting for when the episodes are going to air. A lot of people are expecting it to be binge watchable, where they could just watch all of them in one sitting.
For sure.
I know you were kind of hoping more for that.
I mean, it's probably better that it's not, but it's always nice to binge watch a series.
It is fun, I agree. But I personally am excited for the opportunity it'll give us to kind of talk about each episode on this show and stuff like that. But the one interesting piece that we really wanted to focus on was that episode 8.
The last week, right?
Release date.
So episode 7 will release on December 18th, which is 2 days before The Rise of Skywalker officially is released. I mean, technically it'll release on December 19th.
Right, midnight or whatever. About
7 p.m. depending on your local time. So episode 7 will air right before people are basically seeing episode 9 in theaters. And then instead of the traditional weekly pattern that we have seen for the previous 5 or 6 episodes, we will actually have a whole 9-day gap between episode 7 and episode 8.
Yeah, really interesting too, because I think both episode 7 and episode 8 the dates could be on purpose.
I mean, you kind of have to. So just looking at the episodes, we have the first one releases on Tuesday, the day that Disney Plus does, November 12th. And then it jumps to that Friday, November 15th. But then we basically see that
every Friday, which
is a good, every Friday to see the Mandalorian episodes. But then right before, we have December 13th, which is the last weekly episode.
Then
and then it's a 5-day to get us to have us see December 18th's episode for episode 7, and then a 9-day for episode 8.
Now, I am sure there's some sort of, hey, let's not make it the same day as Rise of Skywalker, right? Because that would be the 20th. So I'm sure there's something in that regards too, but it does make you wonder, is there going to be something in episode 7 that if you watch, maybe will be an Easter egg in episode 9?
Right. Knowing Disney, there's Easter eggs just abundantly. I mean, Star Wars and Disney have been doing that for their entire careers.
One thing they've been good at, for sure.
So that's just something to keep in mind, is that there is maybe something that's going to be in episode 9, or maybe episode 8 will deal with something that is resolved in episode 9.
That's the other thing, right? Is what if there's something in episode 8 that they don't necessarily want us to see until after we have seen episode 9, right? So they want to make sure that they release in.
Just thinking, that sounds really weird. We have to see episode 9 before we see episode 8.
Two different series. Yep.
So the Rise of Skywalker, maybe we'll have a thing. There's a lot of questions we have: Rey's parentage, Rey's origin in general, where she was before she was left on Jakku, Kylo, where the resistance point. I mean, there's lots of things that it could be. It could be something complete, just total small detail that's in the Rise of Skywalker that is then talked about more in episode 8, because it does come before the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. I hope so. I hope there's a little overlap. It doesn't have to be any big plot point or anything, but it'd just be kind of fun.
Right. I mean, I want the Mandalorian to be very much about the Mandalorian, right?
For sure.
But Star Wars has always been connected, and that is what I want Star Wars to be, a connected story.
So next up on the list is something kind of interesting. We broke almost right after we had done our trailer breakdown.
Right.
The news is that the planet seen in the footage for the Rise of Skywalker that we've seen so far, between the couple trailers, that has the Death Star wreckage on it, has been named.
Right.
And obviously we, in our podcast, we were speculating it's probably Endor.
Right.
But they have named it the Ocean Moon Kef Bir. And that's officially
that's officially from Disney.
From Disney, not just a leak or anything. So, and it's because it's getting added to the Star Tours ride in Disneyland. So that's why they leaked that news. Not leaked. Shared that news.
For sure. So that's interesting. And I know we've been talking a lot about Endor, as it's called, is a forest moon. It itself is also a moon of a bigger, larger planet.
Sure.
And in the Star Wars universe, I mean, other planets, even in our universe, it's pretty common you see a planet have several moons. So this is another moon. Is it the ocean moon of the same planet, the ocean moon of Endor?
Maybe Endor just has a moon for every kind of climate?
Yeah, you got a desert moon, mountain moon.
Maybe it's got a fire moon, lava moon, like a Mustafar type of moon.
That'd be interesting, yeah.
So, I mean, we haven't officially had it confirmed that this is a moon of Endor,
right?
But that's kind of what you're thinking.
Yeah, I think that's the most likely, especially just with this being confirmed that it is a Disney, that this is the Death Star 2 wreckage, right? Right.
Yes. So that's another interesting point. Various comments from you guys on like, well, this should be on the forest moon of Endor. I'm going to be honest, I do agree with that. But apparently we're not getting that. So the only likely explanation in my head that makes sense is that this has to be another moon that was close to the wreckage. Because if not, I would be annoyed, I guess, bothered if they want us to think that the Death Star stuff just happened to float to some other random planet way, way far away.
Right. We had a comment on this that was saying, it was Padawan of Christ, commented saying that, there remains of the Death Star would have been launched really far. Okay. So that would make sense. It wouldn't necessarily need to fall just down on the planet, on the moon it was over, but I still think what you're saying makes sense, that it would have to be in the vicinity.
Mm-hmm. Not that Star Wars has been overly concerned with science itself anyways.
True, but there's still always been a fair amount of like
but it would be nice that if
it
logically, like just looking at it, you're like, okay, I could see that. Like,
right.
That's all I need.
And then it was interesting, we have been talking about just it in general, that that we were kind of disappointed. We were totally disappointed that it wasn't Endor, right?
I know. I just don't get why it can't be. That's in my opinion. I'm like, why not?
Why not Endor, right?
Endor has bodies of water. This is obviously a giant body of water, but all of the canonized pictures and things of the planet, if you play Battlefront 2, when you're loading into the screen, it shows Endor. There's water.
Right.
So we know the forest moon has water, so it could have been...
Right.
I don't know.
But we did talk that it was an interesting story-building way of, showing, hey, this is Endor, and this is more about the specific region of Star Wars. So that is kind of an interesting thing.
If it's a moon of Endor, like we think it is, then yeah, at the very least, they're tying it into that.
Right. If it's not, I'm kind of upset already.
Yeah, if it's just a random moon somewhere else. But the fact that it's a moon and not a planet,
that makes it seem like. So what do you guys think? Make sure you drop us your opinions on whether or not that is another moon by Endor, or if it's something else.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to our next point for this last week. This post was pretty cool. They released the cover for the new Kylo Ren comic. I believe this is supposed to be like issue number 2 that this one will be. But the cover appears to have a Luke Skywalker with a young Ben Solo, and they're totally fighting guys that look exactly like the Knights of Ren.
There's almost no question to me that these are the Knights of Ren. I mean, the weaponry we see is very similar to our brief glimpses thus far.
Yeah, and that mask, the guy over on the right.
Right. It looks pretty much the same, right?
Right. The only one that kind of stands out is the guy in the very back who's actually holding a lightsaber.
Right.
Which is really interesting. And I mean, we haven't seen whether the Knights of Ren actually have a lightsaber or not yet.
Which is interesting because I think us, along with many other fans, assumed, Knights of Ren, these are the bad... these are the other Padawans of Luke Skywalker that Kylo was able to turn, so they're obviously Jedis. And then throughout the years, we've kind of seen, none of them are holding lightsabers, so maybe they're just this extra group.
Well, and then the fact that they're fighting them together shows that the Knights of Ren have obviously been a group before he called himself Kylo Ren.
Right.
So the Knights of Ren were not named after Kylo Ren. It actually appears like it'd be vice versa. That Kylo Ren took on the name Ren
as the leader of the Knights of Ren.
Right. So they're not named after him. I just assumed it was that way. They were named after him.
For sure, they picked a leader. They picked a leader, and then they, inherited his name.
Apparently, they were an organization long before that.
Yeah, I'm curious, how long before the events of The Force Awakens do you think this movie or this comic will take place?
I mean, Kylo looks pretty young. I would say what would you say? He's 13, 14, 15 in that? Maybe 16? Do you think he's around that age, or do you think he's older?
I think it's probably, late teens, or I don't think he's in his 20s. That seems kind of excessive,
for sure.
Maybe just 5 years or so before the events of The Force Awakens. That would be interesting that the Knights of Ren have been a force around Kylo's life for this long.
Well, and then the interesting thing is that this issue obviously comes out after The Rise of Skywalker.
Right. So another thing that could potentially, or hopefully, makes a lot more sense after watching The Rise of Skywalker.
Right. And then obviously they wouldn't release this before if there's any spoilers or anything involved in that. But, well, the other thing, too, real quick, I wanted to mention is that the guy with the lightsaber, from all the concept art and things that we've seen of the Knights of Ren, he's the one that really looks different to me.
Right.
Do you think there's any chance that that's Snoke?
I don't know. I mean, just looking at this guy, if you try and get as close as you can to him,
he's got a
he
different
looks
mask.
different. And part
Taller.
of me wonders does Kylo kill him and become the new leader? Is
Perhaps
this the original
that's the leader?
Yeah, and is his name Kylo Ren already, or is his name does he have a different name to be the leader of the Knights of Ren?
Maybe he's Bob Ren or whatever.
Yeah,
Like
I hope it's not Bob Ren, but it's possible.
No, that's actually a good point that you bring up. Maybe Kylo takes over by killing him, and maybe only the leader carries a lightsaber. Maybe that's how they kind of work, because he's the only one with a lightsaber. So he was the leader before Kylo. I like that. That's a good theory, and I think that would work. I do. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. And I've just been loving, honestly, how well the comics have been intertwined into the TV shows and the movies thus far.
The comics have been one of the brightest parts of Lucasfilms, or as of late.
Right. And I think kind of regardless of anyone's opinions on the comics on Disney buying Lucasfilm and the things that they have put out, I've seen very, very, very little negative response to the comics, because the comics have been just supremely well done.
For sure. Moving on to some Obi-Wan news. Pretty exciting stuff here.
Right.
This came via an interview with Ewan McGregor, who was beyond excited to be talking about his role.
Right.
The thing that he said that I thought was super interesting is when someone asked him, like, now that you can finally talk about it, how does it feel? He says, it's a effing massive relief, because for 4 years I've been having to lie to people about it.
So that's just amazing that he has known for so long. This put him before actually the events of before The Force Awakens came out. So he's known since before any of us saw a Star Wars, since Revenge of the Sith.
And that blows my mind, and also makes sense at the same time if you buy into that they were maybe originally making this a Star Wars story, a movie.
Right.
But the fact that he's kept it a secret, because how many stories have broken where just every time he does a new movie, people ask him, hey, are you going to ever be Obi-Wan again?
Right. So, I mean, in the last couple of years, he's done some pretty big movies. I mean, he's had the Winnie the Pooh movie, the Christopher Robin movie wasn't maybe ever the huge movie, but that was a pretty well...
He was in the spotlight, right?
He was in the spotlight for that movie. He's in the Dr. Sleep movie, the Stephen King novel.
Oh, yeah.
So there's not small roles that he's kind of been maintaining throughout the years, where it would have been really easy for him to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to be Obi-Wan again soon.
Right.
So that's cool.
Props to him.
Yeah. Good job.
I wouldn't have been able to...
You fooled us all for 4 years.
Well, he really did, because he always has said... He was always cool about it. He's always like, I would like to, but, that's about it. That's all we got. So
right.
Good for him.
I remember everyone was always like, oh, he wants to do it. He wants to do it. Come on, Disney, do it. But they had already talked to him about it 4 years ago.
Well, like Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm, seeing everyone go, hey, he wants to do it. Make it happen. They're going, we are, just chill, just be patient. Don't worry. Or maybe that was just reassurance to them that, hey, this is
the right
direction. Let's see. I could be able to read it here. So one of the quotes here that he does, he gives us a couple of fun golden nuggets about how the story's going to go. This is what he says. He says, the storyline sits between episode 3 and 4, so I think we already knew that.
Hopefully.
The last time we saw Obi-Wan in the role, the Jedi Order was falling apart. It'll be interesting to take a character we know in a way and show him, well, his arc will be quite interesting, I think. Dealing with the fact that all the Jedi were slaughtered with the end of episode 3, it's quite something to get over.
Right. I think that's something that's going to be really interesting to see. I know something we had talked about and really wanted was for the Obi-Wan TV show to really deal with the fact that Obi-Wan probably has like some PTSD.
Right.
That he, has these nightmares maybe like Anakin, where he wakes up seeing the events of him and Anakin fighting. He has these thoughts of watching his comrades. He's literally seen a video clip of his best friend killing other people he knew in his life.
Yeah.
And now that friend is running around still killing people. Like there's a lot of issues that Obi-Wan has that would be so interesting to see during this time, he has, and that makes me feel that maybe with talking about that is something for Obi-Wan to get over, that we might start to see Obi-Wan really struggle with who he is and where he is.
Yeah, and one of the things that would make sense to me about that is there is a pretty big age gap between how we see him at the end of episode 3 and how we see him when we come to see him in episode 4. Obviously, that's because it's two different actors. We didn't know how the prequels were going to go when the originals were made. But that's a really cool way to explain, hey, look, this is why he aged. He's been on a hot planet. He's been having stress, nightmares, dealing with everything that he went through. He is a Jedi, but he's human. He's got feelings. This stuff shook him up. He's not sure if he'll ever see Yoda again. He's not sure if the Jedi will ever, and he finds out, one thing I hope we get to see on screen, him finding out that Anakin survived and is a machine and a killing machine, and just feeling like he failed. I want to see how he deals with that, the therapy side of that, right? Like,
see if these therapy sessions, he lay on a couch and Qui-Gon just talks to him.
Well, no, that's another good point. I really hope there is Qui-Gon speaking to him in this, and that's a very good possibility. Talking to Qui-Gon, I failed you. Like, I want to hear that. I want to see the pain that we got to see at the end of episode 3, and see him learn how to get over that and move forward and focus on Luke and how he can help.
Right. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, he kind of had to cut himself off with, besides a few, the comics give us a little bit of information, and there's been some information that's been published in the past that is now kind of uncanonized.
Right, legend stuff.
But, just how he's going to deal with stuff. There's going to be some cool scenes where he's still playing maybe a hero, where he's helping out, saving Luke's life, etc. And then there's going to be some times where his life sucks.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to have that balance, because I don't want it to be a depressing TV show, but at the same point, I don't want them to make Obi-Wan not have these hard experiences. Definitely.
So he goes on and he also confirms that the series was going to be 6 episodes,
right,
and that they'll be 1 hour each. That's awesome, because if we got a Kenobi movie, the max we're getting is 2.5 hours, right? Rise of Skywalker is 2:35, and that's the longest Star Wars film yet. So this is like almost triple that.
Right.
So I can't complain about that. That's awesome. It'll be able to get more screen time with him and really develop him.
Right. It's probably not going to get renewed for a second season.
No, I don't think so.
But
I think that's just 6 episodes limited. That's end of story.
But we'll be excited to talk about those when they air. And
as more details come.
Just as more details, we'll keep updating everyone. But, we'll be sitting down and watching all of them every time. I'm sure they're going to drop the same way the Mandalorian does, with just...
maybe one at a time again.
One at a time. And like we're going to do with the Mandalorian, we're going to be sitting down and watching those and doing a breakdown every week. So make sure you join us for our Mandalorian breakdowns that will start happening, I guess pretty much 2 weeks from now.
My goodness, this is coming up. I'm so excited. The last and final point here that I just wanted to throw in there is kind of icing on the cake was that McGregor said, I want to get closer and closer to how Obi-Wan felt while Alec Guinness was playing him. I feel like I'm grayer and nearer him in age, so it'll be easier to do that. The respect that Ewan has always given to Alec Guinness is really cool.
For sure. That's always been so nice that he's always... they both are very iconic people to play such an iconic character, and they both have their own, definitely, like there's the Alec Guinness Obi-Wan and the Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan. I think the fans respect both, and that's cool to see that Ewan doesn't kind of put himself above Alec Guinness's character.
And I think that's one of the reasons it's so believable that, hey, these guys are 2 different actors, but they're both Obi-Wan.
Right.
Because he respects him and he modeled himself after him a little bit, and it really flows.
For sure.
So I'm not worried about the flow at all. I think he'll do a great job with that.
Totally agree, and just excited to see, I guess, what is the one thing you're most excited to see for the Obi-Wan TV show?
I do really want to see Qui-Gon back.
Okay.
That's got to be the number one thing, and the reason is because we know through canon stuff, a certain point of view novel, a couple other things that eventually, after we see him in the Clone Wars where he can only project himself as a voice,
right,
it's canon now that he figures out, eventually trains and learns how to appear as a Force ghost. So there is a good shot that we might get Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon as a Force ghost. I
For
really am excited and hoping for that.
That's an amazing point. I'd love to see Qui-Gon as like a small character, just kind of helping Obi-Wan throughout the entire series.
Yeah, be there to help him through the stuff he's going through. Be there as a guide to let him know what he's supposed to be doing in this kind of time where he's lost. Probably feels like he doesn't have a place. So, What about you?
For me, it would be something we've always talked about, is just Obi-Wan finding out that Anakin is alive, because he does know his name was Darth Vader, but just knowing that, hey, I didn't kill him. He didn't die on that planet. And just that'd be so interesting to see how they're going to do it, because obviously this will take place a little bit after episode 3. But, you know, is he watching TV, is he sitting at home, or what happens, and how is he going to react? Is he going to freak out? Does he want to go after him, or will he just be like depressed? And I just think there could be so many neat ways that they show that. And just that'd be an interesting thing to see, you know? How does he know?
Definitely. Like in the Legends novel, we knew that he was at the cantina, I believe, and then he hears them talking over the radio and about Darth Vader doing this and this, and he's like, wait, what? And like talking about how Darth Vader's alive pretty much, and that's how he finds out. He goes to Tatooine, gives Luke off to Owen and Beru, and still thinks that Vader's dead.
Right.
He thinks he killed Anakin.
He thought he killed Anakin, and now he has to, he's just sitting in a bar.
So I liked the way the Legends novel did it, and I wouldn't be opposed to them doing something similar.
For sure.
But there's obviously that's Legends now. The sky's the limit, but that is a must include. I agree with you.
All right. Well, let us know what you want to see the most in the Obi-Wan series, or any thoughts on the Kylo Ren comics.
Yep.
Just for always, make sure to like and subscribe to our videos and our pages. And as always, may the Force be with you.